In the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, power is almost exclusively defined by more. More cursed energy, more complex techniques, more barriers. The entire hierarchy of sorcery, from the higher-ups to the Big Three family, is built on the accumulation of power. But there are two glitches in this system, two individuals who defied the very physics of Jujutsu, not by having more, but by having nothing. To understand Maki, we have to break her timeline down arc by arc. We need to look at the mechanics of her heavenly restriction, the psychological toll of the Zenin clan, and the specific tactical evolutions she underwent in every major conflict. This is the definitive profile of Maki Zenin, the monster of Zero. To scale Maki correctly, we have to establish her baseline. The Zenin clan operates on a brutal meritocracy based solely on cursed techniques. If you can't use a technique, you aren't a sorcerer. If you aren't a sorcerer, you aren't a person. Maki was born with civilian levels of cursed energy. In exchange, she was gifted with physical prowess that was above average. At this stage, she relies entirely on cursed tools. Specifically, she uses special glasses just to see curses she's fighting. Her strength here is impressive for a human, but in the grand scheme of special grade threats, she is painfully mortal. However, Jujutsu Kaisen 0 establishes her mindset. She mentors Yuta Okotsu, not with gentle encouragement, but with the hard reality of their world. She tells him to turn his frustration into power. This is Maki's core philosophy. Spite is fuel. She stays at Jujutsu High not because she wants to save people, but because she wants to rise to grade 1, just to rub it in her family's face. At this point, her cursed energy is above human level. Her vision is dependent on glasses, and at this point she's ranked at grade 4.
So what's this? You're looking even more bummed out than usual, Megami. Having a wake?
The Kyoto Goodwill event is where we first see Maki step out of the background and into the spotlight of high-level combat. This arc is crucial because it highlights the discrepancy between her rank and her actual capability. Officially, Maki is a grade 4 sorcerer. This is the lowest rank, usually reserved for novices who can barely handle a flyhead. But as soon as the event begins, we see how laughable that ranking is. The first example of this is Maki versus Miwa, a grade 3, arguably grade 2 potential sorcerer. Miwa's simple domain gives her a 2.2 meter interception radius. Anything that enters that circle gets automatically countered. It is a perfect defense against melee fighters. Maki dismantles this defense not with magic, but with physics and reach. She utilizes a pole arm to strike outside of Miwa's auto-counter range. When Miwa tries to adjust, Maki closes the distance and overpowers her physically. This is our first clue. Maki's human strength is already hitting harder than a reinforced sorcerer. She understands leverage, spacing, and weapon matchups better than anyone on the field. She disarms Miwa and forces a surrender without breaking a sweat. Then comes the fight against her twin sister, Mai. This is the emotional core of the arc, by the way, but from a scaling perspective, it gives us a massive feat, the bullet catch. Mai uses a revolver infused with cursed energy. She fires 6 shots, distracting Maki, before revealing her secret technique, creating a 7th bullet from nothing. This takes Maki by surprise at point-blank range, yet Maki catches the bullet with her bare hand. A standard .357 Magnum fires at 400 meters per second. Rubber bullets are much slower, maybe 70 to 150 meters per second. However, Mai infused them with cursed energy. We can assume a conservative transonic speed to keep it a bit more consistent, or one could say that the curse energy reinforcement likely pushes the velocity to at least subsonic speeds. In either case, this bullet catching feat is very impressive.
She caught the bullet?
Now, later on in the arc, Maki fights the special grade curse Hanami alongside Megumi. Here she wields Playful Cloud. Note that Playful Cloud hits harder when Maki uses it as opposed to Megumi. Why? Because pure physical strength enhances the tool's output. Maki was able to knock back Hanami, a feat Yuji struggled to do without Black Flash. She proves here that her offensive output is easily grade 1 level. However, her durability is still human. She can't tank Hanami's attacks, she has to dodge and parry. At this point, she's somewhat a glass cannon. High offense, fragile defense.
What an interesting girl. You should just go ahead and promote her to 2nd grade already.
Believe me, I feel the same way. But the Zenin clan keeps on interfering. I wish they would just change their position and accept her.
If the Goodwill event showed us Maki's potential, Shibuya showed us her limits, because it places emphasis on exactly what she's missing. She's deployed with Nayobito Zenin and Kento Nanami, both grade 1 sorcerers. This squad grouping allows us to directly compare her to the pinnacle of normal sorcery. When the squad engages the disaster curse Dagon, the speed gap becomes apparent. Nayobito Zenin, using projection sorcery, is the 2nd fastest sorcerer alive. He moves so fast that Dagon, a special grade curse spirit, can't even weave hand signs. Maki, by comparison, is struggling to keep up. She can track the fight herself, but she can't replicate Nayobito's movements. When Dagon activates his domain expansion, Maki is immediately put on the defensive. She relies on Nayobito and Nanami to take the brunt of the sure hit attack, and she survives only because Megumi disrupts the barrier. This fight confirms that Maki is strong, but she's not yet in the same tier as a Supreme Grade 1 like Nayobito. This becomes even more clear when Jogo arrives. Jogo is a disaster curse with speed and firepower that dwarfs Dagon. In seconds, he blitzes the exhausted sorcerers. He taps Nayobito, incinerating him, taps Nanami, burning half his torso, and then unleashes a blast of fire directly on Maki. She has no curse energy to reinforce her skin, yet she survives. She is incapacitated, severely burnt, and left with permanent scars, but she lives. This is subtle foreshadowing for her heavenly restrictions' resilience. Her body is denser, tougher, and more heat resistant than a normal human's, even in this incomplete state. But this is the ceiling. She survived by luck and biology, but she was completely helpless against a true special grade. So Shibuya leaves Maki scarred, broken, and acutely aware that grade 1 isn't enough. To change the Zenin clan, she needs to become a monster.
If you're gonna call me weak, then kill me in a single blow. Octo bitch.
This is the turning point. The perfect preparation arc contains the most significant evolution in Maki's history. She returns to the Zenin estate to collect weapons for the Culling Games. Instead, she walks into a trap set by her father, Ogi Zenin. Ogi defeats both Maki and Mai effortlessly, throwing them into a pit of cursed spirits to die. That is when we learned the tragic rule of Jujutsu twins. Twins are considered one individual. As long as Mai lived, Maki was incomplete. Mai possessed curse energy and a technique, which meant Maki's heavenly restriction was half paid. She had given up most of her energy, but not all of it. In the pit, Mai makes the ultimate sacrifice. She dies, taking all of their shared cursed energy with her. When Maki wakes up, she has zero cursed energy. not low, not civilian level, 0. This completes Maki's heavenly restriction. Her body is overwritten. She gains the exact same physical prowess as Toji Fushiguro. The result is immediate and terrifying. Ogi Zenin is a special grade 1 sorcerer. Moments ago he defeated Maki instantly. Now when Maki steps outside the pit, Ogi senses something's wrong. He sees Toji standing behind her. He prepares his strongest technique and Maki moves. Before Ogi can even finish his thought, half his head was cut off. She blitzed a special grade 1 sorcerer so fast his brain couldn't process the visual information. She shattered his reinforced katana with pure physical force. What follows is one of the most violent sequences in shonen history. The Zenin clan unleashes everything they have on her. Maki slaughters a squad of elite martial artists. She rips out their throats with her bare hands. She demonstrates limitless stamina. Her body clears lactic acid and processes oxygen at superhuman efficiency. She doesn't get tired. The squad of semi-grade 1 sorcerers with techniques wasn't any different, by the way. She tanked Jinichi Zenin's missile fist, giant rocket-propelled punches that destroyed a building. She easily decapitates him and tosses his head into a pond. Finally, she faces Naoya Zenin. He uses the same projection sorcery as his father. He moves at subsonic to supersonic speeds, building momentum. Initially, he was able to overwhelm her. He was moving too fast. But Maki isn't just reacting. She's analyzing. She begins to count. 1, 2, 3. She deciphers the 24 frames per second rule of his technique. Because her body's now superhuman, her eyes can see the individual frames of his movement. She predicts his path. She holds out her fist, hugging the air, and lets Naoya run face first into her punch. With one hit, she caved in the face of a special grade 1 sorcerer. By the end of this arc, Maki has jumped from grade 2 to special grade 1 or higher. She has the hardware of Toji Fushiguro, immense durability, supersonic speed, and enhanced senses. But she's still fighting with rage. She's fighting with a heat that Toji didn't have. She has the body, but not yet the mind. In the Sakurajima colony, Maki hits a wall. She encounters the vengeful spirit of Naoya Zenin. He has turned into a jet turbine monstrosity capable of reaching Mach 3. Even with heavenly restriction, Maki cannot track Mach 3. She's getting battered. Her internal organs are damaged by the high-speed impacts. She's effectively being stat-checked. She has the body of Toji, but she's losing. Why? Well, enter two of the strangest characters in JJK history, Daido and Mio. These two act as catalysts for Maki's final evolution. Daido, a non-sorcerer who can't even see curses, grabs the split soul katana and slices Naoya. He then asks Maki, "Why can't you see it?" He explains that Maki's too focused on the curse. She's trying to track the enemy with her eyes, but Daido tracks the environment. He feels the air displacement, the temperature shifts, the soul of the inorganic matter around him. Mio or Mayo then grabs Maki and drags her into a sumo domain. This is a simple domain where time is dilated. They wrestle hundreds of times. Mio screams at her to stop thinking. He tells her that she's weighed down by her trauma, by her comparisons to Toji, by her hatred. He tells her to empty her mind, to find freedom. Maki then emerges from the domain a changed person. She has achieved the mindset of Toji. She no longer relies on her 5 senses alone. She perceives the world in 360 degrees. She feels the density of the air. She doesn't need to see Naoya moving at Mach 3. she feels the atmosphere parting before he arrives. She knows where he will be before he gets there. And by perceiving the density of air currents, she can physically step on the air itself, thus double jumping and maneuvering in pseudo flight. The rematch that ensued is a slaughter. Maki dodges a Mach 3 tackle with a smile. She isn't moving at Mach 3 herself, she's just moving efficiently. She's exactly where she needs to be. She also wields the split soul katana, a replica left by Mai. This soul ignores physical durability and cuts the soul directly. Maki uses this to bypass Naoya's armor, because she can now see the soul of the carbon and the steel that makes up his body. That allows her to exercise him permanently. At this moment, the narrator confirms it themselves. She has become a fighter equal to Toji. This brings us to the final arc, the Shinjuku Showdown. Everything Maki has learned, the pain of Shibuya, the awakening in the Zenin warehouse, the enlightenment in Sakurajima, is tested here against the strongest sorcerer in history, Ryumin Sukuna. Even though Sukuna is weakened from his battle with Gojo and Yuji's soul punches, he is still the strongest. Maki enters the fight with a stealth attack. Because she has zero cursed energy, she's invisible to Sukuna's senses to some extent. She acts as the perfect assassin. She was able to stab Sukuna through the heart with the split soul katana. Under normal circumstances, this is a kill shot. The split soul katana inflicts damage that is incredibly difficult to heal with reversed cursed technique, and that is because it requires healing the shape of the soul, not just the body. Sukuna only survives this by manually pumping his heart with cursed energy. Then for several chapters and panels, Maki is the primary vanguard. She goes toe-to-toe with Heian-era Sukuna in hand-to-hand combat. Sukuna is fascinated by her. He calls her a walking negation of Jujutsu. He claims that this fight will determine what is superior, sorcery, which is skin and flesh, or heavenly restriction, which he says is bone and marrow. Then comes the feat that sparked endless debate. In chapter 253, Sukuna, excited by the challenge, stops healing his heart and pours all his energy into offense. He lands a black flash directly on Maki. A black flash from a special grade sorcerer usually vaporizes people. It puts them in the ground. Maki is sent flying through multiple buildings. She crashes, but she gets back up. She isn't dead. She isn't missing a limb. She returns to the fight a few chapters later. Then in chapter 255 or 256, she engages him again. She actually slices off one of Sukuna's arms during the chaotic scramble with Yuji and Choso. Sukuna responds with a second black flash. Again, Maki takes it. While this one does remove Maki from the fight itself, the fact that her body remains intact after taking 2 black flashes from the King of Curses is one of the greatest durability feats in the entire manga. He confirms her durability is relative to special grade sorcerers like Yuta and Yuji. By the way, there's also a special perk of having zero cursed energy, which is that she's pretty much undetectable by domain expansions, at least the auto function of them. So she's able to enter and leave a domain whenever she wants to, and she doesn't get targeted by the sure hit effect of the domain itself unless the person manually targets her, which by the way is how she was able to stab Sukuna. So she's like a ghost in the machine per se. Now in the final chapter, chapter 271, we see the aftermath. The world has changed. The existence of curses is public knowledge. Maki, now fully realized and essentially free from the Zenin Clan shadow, is seen as a key protector of this new world. There's also a significant detail from the Modulo sequel or spin-off materials that were teased around the ending. It is heavily implied and really just confirmed if you've read Modulo, but I'm trying not to spoil. But you guys get it. Maki and Yuta eventually reconcile their relationship, settling down together. So for a character whose entire life was defined by hate and rejection, ending her story with love and a legacy is the ultimate victory, I think. So, how strong was Maki Zenin? Well, in the Kyoto arc, she was a skilled weapons master held back by a civilian body. In Shibuya, she was a grade 1 mind in a fragile vessel. Then in perfect preparation, she became a physical juggernaut, shattering the ceiling of her clan. Then in Sakurajima, she unlocked the senses of a god, becoming one with the environment. And finally in Shinjuku, she tanked the King of Curses and proved that flesh and bone can rival the strongest magic. Maki Zenin's story is a deconstruction of the shonen power fantasy to some extent. She didn't have a hidden demon power. She didn't unlock a secret lineage technique. She became strong by losing everything. She lost her rank, her home, her sister, and eventually her humanity. But in doing so, she became the one thing the Jujutsu world feared most, an anomaly they couldn't control. Thanks for watching or listening. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the metaphysics of heavenly restriction, make sure to like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments. Do you think Maki surpassed Toji, or do you think they're equals? I'll see you guys next time.